It was a morning like no other for Alex, though he didn't know it yet. His small apartment on the outskirts of New Chicago felt eerily quiet as sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting long stripes across his worn-out carpet. He stirred in bed, groggy and disoriented, only to realize something, or someone, was pressing down on him. At first, Alex thought it might be one of his friends playing a prank. But when he opened his eyes, everything changed. Hovering above him wasn't anyone human. Instead, an alien with shimmering silver skin and large, almond-shaped violet eyes stared back at him. Her elongated fingers rested lightly on his chest, and her expression seemed oddly calm, almost serene. What are you doing here?" Alex stammered, his voice trembling. His heart pounded so loudly that he swore she could hear it too. The alien tilted her head slightly, studying him as if trying to understand every nuance of his reaction. Then, without warning, she spoke, not in some guttural growl or robotic monotone but in perfectly clear English. "You've been chosen," she said softly, her tone carrying both authority and warmth. Alex blinked several times, certain this had to be a dream. "Chosen? For what?" Her lips curved into what could only be described as a faint smile. "Survival." Before Alex could respond, she leaned closer, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "Listen carefully," she continued. "Earth is not safe anymore. You need to leave, with me." Alex's mind raced. Was this real? Had he finally lost it after years of working late shifts at the warehouse and surviving on instant noodles? Yet there was something about her presence, something undeniable. She radiated confidence, intelligence, and maybe even concern. "Leave Earth? Why would I do that?" he asked, still struggling to process the situation. The alien paused, her gaze flickering toward the window where faint sounds of traffic drifted up from below. "Because your kind has awakened forces beyond their control. And soon they will come for all of you." As these words sank in, Alex noticed how steady her voice remained despite the gravity of her message. There was no malice, no threat, just raw honesty wrapped in an unsettling truth. He wanted to laugh, to dismiss her as some elaborate hallucination brought on by stress or lack of sleep. But deep down, a part of her story resonated. Over the past few months, strange things had been happening around the world, unexplained disappearances, bizarre weather patterns, whispers of unidentified objects in the sky. People chalked it up to paranoia or conspiracy theories, but now, lying beneath this otherworldly being, those events took on new meaning. "Why me?" Alex finally managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. She leaned back slightly, giving him room to breathe, though her weightless form hardly felt intrusive. "Because you are adaptable. Because you question. Because you can help us stop them before it's too late." Alex swallowed hard, his thoughts spiraling. Help who? Stop what? None of this made sense, yet the sincerity in her voice compelled him to listen further. "I don't even know your name," he muttered, grasping for something tangible to anchor himself to. For the first time since waking up, the alien hesitated. A flicker of emotion crossed her face, something akin to amusement mixed with sadness. "Names hold power," she replied cryptically. "But if you must call me something, use Leora." "Leora," Alex repeated slowly, testing the unfamiliar syllables on his tongue. It sounded foreign yet strangely comforting. With a gentle motion, Leora slid off him and stood beside the bed, her slender frame towering over him. Despite her alien appearance, there was an elegance to her movements, as if gravity itself bent to accommodate her presence. "Get dressed," she instructed firmly. "We don't have much time." "Time for what?" Alex wondered silently. Time to escape? Time to save humanity? Or time to figure out whether he was truly awake or trapped in the strangest dream of his life? Reluctantly, Alex swung his legs over the side of the bed and planted his feet on the floor. His body felt heavy, weighed down by confusion and fear. But beneath it all, a spark of curiosity ignited within him. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again. Alex shuffled to his closet, grabbing the first pair of jeans and a hoodie he could find. His hands trembled as he pulled them on, his mind racing faster than his ability to process everything happening around him. Leora stood silently in the corner of his room, her glowing violet eyes scanning the walls covered in faded posters of old sci-fi movies, a cruel irony that now felt like cosmic mockery. "Okay," Alex said, breaking the silence as he slipped into his sneakers. "You're telling me Earth is in danger. From what? Aliens? Monsters? Something worse?" Leora's expression remained unreadable, but her tone softened slightly. "Not monsters, though I understand why you think that. The threat comes from those who see your planet not as a home but as an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" Alex pressed, tying his laces with clumsy fingers. "For conquest," she replied simply. "For resources. For domination. Your species has been broadcasting signals into space for decades, unaware of who or what might be listening. Now others have heard. And they are coming." Alex froze mid-motion, his stomach sinking. He'd read about this before, countless articles speculating whether humanity's attempts to communicate with extraterrestrial life were reckless or naive. But those were just theories, weren't they? Wild ideas meant to sell books and movies. Yet here was Leora, standing in his tiny apartment, confirming his worst fears. "So let me get this straight," Alex said, standing up and facing her. "You're one of the good aliens? Here to warn us?" Her lips twitched again, not quite a smile, but close enough. "I am not good or bad. I am practical. My people observed your world long before you realized we existed. We saw potential in you, a species capable of great creativity and resilience. But also destruction." Alex crossed his arms, trying to steady himself against the wave of emotions crashing over him. "And these other aliens, the ones coming, they're not so practical?" "They are predators," Leora corrected. "They do not seek coexistence. They consume worlds, strip them of their resources, and move on. If they arrive, Earth will become another casualty." The weight of her words hit Alex like a freight train. It wasn't just his life at stake, it was billions of lives. Entire ecosystems. Civilizations. Everything he knew would vanish under the shadow of some intergalactic apocalypse. "But why me?" he asked again, his voice cracking under the strain. "Why pick some nobody living in a crummy apartment when you could go to someone important? A scientist, a politician, anyone with actual power?" Leora stepped closer, her presence commanding yet oddly comforting. "Because importance is relative. Power often blinds individuals to reality. You, however, question everything. You adapt. Those qualities make you valuable." Alex shook his head, overwhelmed. "Adapt? Question? That doesn't sound like much of a plan." "It's more than you realize," she countered. "Survival requires flexibility, not brute force. Your leaders would panic, argue among themselves, and waste precious time debating protocols. By then, it would already be too late." Her logic was infuriatingly sound. Still, Alex couldn't shake the feeling that he was being thrust into something far beyond his capabilities. "Even if I believe you, and I'm not saying I do, what exactly am I supposed to do? Fight off an alien invasion with my fists?" "No," Leora said firmly. "You'll come with me. To our ship. There, we can prepare you. Teach you." "Prepare me for what?" Alex demanded, throwing his hands up in frustration. "Some kind of cosmic boot camp?" "In a way," she admitted. "But there's no time to explain further. Every second we delay brings them closer." Alex hesitated, glancing around his cluttered apartment. The cracked clock on the wall ticked steadily, oblivious to the chaos unfolding within its confines. This was insane. Beyond insane. Yet, despite the absurdity of it all, a part of him wanted to believe her. Maybe it was desperation. Or maybe it was hope, the faint possibility that somehow, he could make a difference. "Fine," Alex muttered finally, grabbing his wallet and stuffing it into his pocket. "Let's say I agree to this crazy plan. Where's your ship? How do we get there?" Leora nodded approvingly, as if she'd expected nothing less. "Follow me." She turned and walked toward the door, moving with an effortless grace that made Alex feel clumsy by comparison. He hesitated for a moment, staring at the threshold between his ordinary life and whatever lay ahead. Then, taking a deep breath, he followed her out. The hallway outside was eerily quiet, devoid of the usual sounds of neighbors arguing or kids running around. As they descended the stairs, Alex noticed subtle changes in the air, an electric charge, almost imperceptible but undeniably present. When they reached the ground floor, Leora stopped abruptly and gestured toward the alleyway behind the building. "There," she said, pointing to a shimmering distortion hovering near the dumpster. At first glance, it looked like heat waves rising off asphalt, but as Alex squinted, he realized it was something else entirely, a portal, rippling with hues of blue and purple. "That's your ship?" Alex asked skeptically. "No," Leora replied. "This is merely the gateway. The ship awaits beyond." Alex swallowed hard, his pulse quickening. Stepping through that shimmering veil felt like stepping into the unknown, a decision that could change everything. Or end it. "What happens if I refuse?" he asked quietly, though he already suspected the answer. Leora's gaze softened, tinged with sadness. "Then you stay here. And wait for the inevitable." The inevitability of doom hung heavy in the air, pressing down on Alex until he could hardly breathe. He glanced back at the building, at the life he'd always known, however imperfect it might have been. Then, steeling himself, he turned back to Leora. "All right," he said, his voice steadier than he expected. "Let's do this." Without another word, Leora extended her hand, inviting him to take the first step. For a brief moment, Alex hesitated, the enormity of his choice weighing heavily on his shoulders. But then, summoning every ounce of courage he possessed, he reached out and grasped her hand. As soon as their fingers touched, the world dissolved into light. The sensation of stepping through the portal was unlike anything Alex had ever experienced. It wasn't walking so much as falling through a kaleidoscope of colors and sensations that defied logic. His body felt weightless, stretched thin across dimensions, while his mind buzzed with fragmented images and sounds, distant stars exploding in silent bursts, whispers in languages he couldn't comprehend, and fleeting glimpses of landscapes both alien and breathtaking. For a moment, panic gripped him. Was this what death felt like? Had Leora tricked him into some kind of cosmic trap? But just as quickly as the disorientation set in, it vanished, replaced by solid ground beneath his feet and cool air brushing against his skin. Alex stumbled forward, blinking rapidly to adjust to the sudden change in surroundings. He found himself standing on a sleek metallic platform suspended high above an endless expanse of shimmering blue energy. The horizon stretched infinitely in every direction, dotted with floating structures that seemed to defy gravity. Everything gleamed with a futuristic sheen, polished surfaces reflecting the ambient light of countless glowing orbs hovering nearby. Where are we?" Alex stammered, his voice barely audible over the hum of unseen machinery. "This is the Nexus," Leora explained calmly, releasing his hand and gesturing toward the vast panorama before them. "A transit hub connecting multiple points across space and time." Alex's jaw dropped as he took in the sight. Ships of all shapes and sizes drifted lazily around the platform, their designs ranging from sleek and angular to organic and flowing, as if grown rather than built. Beings of various species moved about, some humanoid, others utterly unrecognizable, creatures with too many limbs, translucent bodies, or forms that shifted and flickered like holograms. "You weren't kidding when you said aliens," Alex muttered under his breath, feeling more out of place than ever. Leora gave him a small, almost amused glance. "I rarely joke about matters of such importance." Before Alex could respond, a low thrum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. He turned to see a vessel approaching, a ship unlike any he'd imagined. Its surface appeared liquid-like, rippling gently as though alive, and its shape constantly shifted, adapting to the environment around it. As it docked silently beside the platform, a section of its hull dissolved into a glowing doorway, revealing an interior bathed in soft, golden light. This is our transport, Leora said, motioning for him to follow. We must board immediately. Alex hesitated, glancing back at the bustling activity around them. What about everyone else here? Do they know about Earth? About the invasion? They have their own concerns, Leora replied evenly. Few care about your planet beyond its potential value, or lack thereof. Her words sent a chill down Alex's spine. To these beings, Earth was just another dot in the universe, insignificant unless it served a purpose. And now, apparently, it served as bait for predators lurking in the dark corners of space. Taking a deep breath, Alex stepped onto the ship after Leora, the doorway closing seamlessly behind them. Inside, the walls pulsed faintly with bioluminescent patterns, casting the cabin in an ethereal glow. There were no visible controls or seats, just smooth, curved surfaces that seemed to anticipate movement without requiring physical interaction. How does it work? Alex asked, running his fingers along one of the walls. The material felt warm to the touch, almost alive. The ship responds to thought, Leora explained. It adapts to the pilot's intentions. For now, I will guide us. As she spoke, the ship began to move, accelerating smoothly until the nexus faded into the distance. Through the transparent ceiling, Alex watched as stars streak past in blinding flashes, the ship hurtling through space at speeds that should have been impossible. Despite the chaos swirling inside his head, there was a strange beauty to it all, a reminder of how vast and mysterious the universe truly was. So, Alex began, breaking the silence after several minutes. What happens next? You said something about preparing me. What does that even mean? Leora turned to face him, her violet eyes locking onto his with unwavering intensity. You will undergo training. Physical, mental, and strategic. You'll learn to use tools and abilities far beyond what you currently possess. Abilities? Alex echoed, raising an eyebrow. Like superpowers or something? In a manner of speaking, she replied cryptically. But power alone won't save your world. Understanding is key. You must grasp not only how to fight but why. Alex frowned, processing her words. Why me, though? Seriously. Out of all the people on Earth, why pick someone who spends most days stacking boxes in a warehouse? Leora tilted her head slightly, studying him as if weighing her response. Because survival isn't dictated by strength or status. It's defined by adaptability, by curiosity, by the willingness to embrace uncertainty. Those traits are rare among your kind, and essential for what lies ahead. Her explanation offered little comfort, but Alex didn't press further. Instead, he focused on the view outside, watching as nebulae painted the void with vibrant hues of red, green, and purple. For the first time in his life, he felt small, not in a demeaning way, but in a humbling one. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about Earth. About humanity. Hours passed, or maybe it was mere minutes. Time seemed irrelevant aboard the ship. Eventually, the vessel slowed, coming to a halt near a massive structure orbiting a dying star. The construct resembled a colossal ring, its surface covered in intricate carvings that shimmered like molten gold. Our destination, Leora announced, her voice tinged with reverence. This is the Forge, a sanctuary where warriors are made. Alex stared at the structure, all mixing with apprehension. Whatever awaited him inside, he knew it wouldn't be easy. But as the ship docked and the hatch opened, revealing a corridor lined with pulsating lights, he squared his shoulders and prepared to face whatever came next. One thing was certain, his old life was gone. Whether he liked it or not, Alex was now part of something much bigger, and far more dangerous. Stepping off the ship and into the forge felt like entering another world entirely. The air was thick with an almost tangible energy, crackling faintly as if charged by some unseen force. The walls of the corridor shimmered with iridescent patterns that shifted and danced in response to their presence, as though the structure itself were alive and aware of their arrival. Leora led the way, her movements purposeful yet unhurried. Alex followed closely behind, his senses overwhelmed by the sheer alienness of it all. Every step echoed softly against the metallic floor, blending with the low hum of machinery hidden deep within the walls. Occasionally, they passed other beings, some humanoid, others bizarre amalgamations of flesh and technology, but none acknowledged them. It was as if Alex and Leora were ghosts drifting through a realm beyond comprehension. "Is this place safe?" Alex asked hesitantly, glancing at one particularly unsettling creature with too many eyes and appendages that seemed to writhe independently of its body. "It is secure," Leora replied without looking back. "The forge adapts to those who enter. It will not harm you unless provoked." Her answer did little to ease Alex's nerves. He couldn't shake the feeling that the forge wasn't just a building, it was watching him, studying him, perhaps even judging him. Each step forward felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of expectation pressed down on his shoulders. Eventually, they reached a massive chamber at the heart of the structure. The room was circular, its ceiling lost in shadow high above. At its center stood a pedestal-like platform surrounded by floating holographic displays, each projecting intricate diagrams and symbols Alex couldn't begin to decipher. The air here buzzed with a different kind of energy, focused, intent, and somehow alive. "This is where your training begins," Leora said, gesturing toward the platform. "Step onto it." Alex hesitated, eyeing the platform warily. "What exactly am I stepping into?" "A nexus of knowledge and power," she explained. "It will assess your capabilities and provide what you need to survive. Trust me." Trust her? Alex barely knew her. Yet despite his doubts, he found himself moving forward, drawn by a mix of curiosity and resignation. When he placed his feet on the platform, a sudden jolt of warmth shot through his body, spreading from his toes to the tips of his fingers. The holograms around him flared brighter, spinning faster as streams of data cascaded across their surfaces. "What's happening?" Alex gasped, gripping the edges of the platform for balance. His vision blurred momentarily, replaced by flashes of unfamiliar images, weapons firing plasma bolts, shields deflecting energy beams, figures moving with impossible speed. "The forge is analyzing you," Leora said calmly, standing a few paces away. "It will determine your strengths and weaknesses, then tailor the training accordingly." As quickly as it had started, the sensation subsided, leaving Alex breathless but unharmed. The holograms slowed, coalescing into a single image projected directly above him, a humanoid figure clad in sleek armor, wielding a glowing weapon unlike anything Alex had ever seen. "That's me?" he asked, pointing at the projection. "In theory," Leora replied. "That is what you could become, if you're willing to endure the process." Alex stared at the image, torn between awe and disbelief. The figure radiated confidence and strength, qualities he never associated with himself. Could he really transform into someone like that? Someone capable of standing against an alien invasion? Before he could dwell on the question further, the platform beneath him began to shift, rising slightly off the ground and rotating until Alex faced a series of floating rings suspended in midair. They pulsed with light, emitting a soft chime that resonated throughout the chamber. "Your first test," Leora announced. "Physical agility and reflexes. Pass through the rings without touching them. If you succeed, we move on. If you fail..." She trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. "Great," Alex muttered under his breath. "No pressure or anything." Without warning, the rings began to move, spinning and shifting positions in unpredictable patterns. Alex took a deep breath, reminding himself to stay calm. He stepped forward cautiously, timing his movements carefully as he ducked under one ring and leaped over another. For the first few seconds, he managed to keep up, adrenaline fueling his actions. But then the rings accelerated, their motions becoming erratic and nearly impossible to predict. Alex stumbled, narrowly avoiding a collision before slipping to the side. His heart raced as he scrambled to regain his footing, sweat beading on his forehead. "You must trust your instincts," Leora called out, her voice firm but encouraging. "Think less, act more." Easier said than done, Alex thought bitterly. Still, he forced himself to focus, shutting out the noise and chaos around him. Instead of trying to anticipate the ring's movements, he let his body react instinctively, dodging and weaving with surprising fluidity. Slowly but surely, he found a rhythm, his confidence growing with each successful pass. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the ring stilled, hovering silently in the air. Alex collapsed onto the platform, panting heavily but grinning despite himself. "Not bad," Leora admitted, a hint of approval in her tone. "But physical prowess is only part of the equation. Next, we test your mental resilience." Before Alex could protest, or even ask what that meant, the chamber transformed once again. The holograms flickered, replaced by a swirling vortex of light and sound that enveloped him completely. Suddenly, he was no longer in the forge. He stood in the middle of a desolate cityscape, smoke rising from crumbling buildings and the distant roar of explosions echoing in the background. "Welcome to the simulation." Leora's voice rang out, disembodied but clear. "Here, you'll face scenarios designed to push your mind to its limits. Survive, and you'll emerge stronger. Fail, and the consequences will feel very real." Alex spun around, searching for her, but she was nowhere to be seen. Panic clawed at the edges of his mind as shadows moved in the distance, shapes that resembled both human and alien forms. Were they friend or foe? He had no way of knowing. A loud crash startled him, forcing him to dive behind a pile of rubble just as a beam of searing energy tore through the space where he'd been standing moments earlier. Heart pounding, Alex realized this wasn't just a game. This was survival. Crouching low, he scanned his surroundings, looking for anything he could use as a weapon. His hand closed around a jagged piece of metal, and though it wasn't much, it gave him a sliver of hope. As the shadowy figures advanced, Alex tightened his grip, preparing to fight, or die trying. The shadowy figures emerged from the smoke, their forms flickering like broken holograms. One moment they appeared humanoid, the next monstrous, twisted amalgamations of flesh and machinery that sent shivers down Alex's spine. Their glowing eyes locked onto him, unblinking and predatory. "This is insane," Alex muttered to himself, clutching the jagged piece of metal tighter. His heart thundered in his chest as adrenaline surged through his veins. He knew this wasn't real, it couldn't be real, but the fear gripping him felt all too tangible. "Focus," Leora's voice echoed faintly, distant yet clear. "Survival requires clarity, not panic." Clarity? How was he supposed to think straight when every instinct screamed at him to run? Yet deep down, Alex understood her point. Panic would only get him killed, or worse, trapped in whatever nightmare this simulation had become. Taking a shaky breath, Alex forced himself to assess the situation. The rubble around him offered some cover, but it wouldn't last long against whatever weapons those creatures carried. He needed a plan, and fast. One of the figures lunged forward, its elongated limbs stretching unnaturally as it advanced. Alex reacted instinctively, ducking behind a crumbling wall just as another searing energy blast scorched the air above him. The heat singed his hair, a grim reminder of how close he'd come to being incinerated. Okay, Alex whispered under his breath, trying to steady his racing thoughts. "Think. What do I have? What can I use?" His eyes darted around the desolate landscape, searching for anything that might give him an edge. Nearby, he spotted a fallen steel beam partially buried in debris. It wasn't much, but combined with his makeshift weapon, it could serve as both a shield and a battering ram. Summoning every ounce of courage he possessed, Alex darted toward the beam, dodging another volley of energy blasts along the way. The creature's movements were erratic, almost mechanical, giving him precious seconds to grab the heavy piece of metal and swing it into position. With his improvised defenses in hand, Alex turned to face his attackers. There were 3 of them now, closing in from different angles. Their glowing eyes pulsed ominously, and the sound of their metallic footsteps echoed eerily in the smoky haze. "You want me?" Alex shouted, his voice trembling but defiant. "Come and get me!" The first creature charged, its claw-like hands reaching for him. Alex swung the steel beam with all his strength, striking it squarely in the torso. The impact sent the creature stumbling backward, its form flickering erratically before dissolving into static. "One down." Alex panted, his arms burning from the effort. But there was no time to celebrate. The remaining two were already advancing, their movements faster and more coordinated than before. Alex backed away, his mind racing. He couldn't keep this up forever. He needed to find a weakness. Then he noticed something. Whenever he struck one of the creatures directly in their glowing eyes, their forms destabilized. That was it, their weak spot. Focusing on the second creature, Alex feinted left, drawing its attention before darting right and launching himself at its head. With a desperate cry, he drove the jagged shard of metal into its eye socket. The creature let out an ear-piercing screech before collapsing into a heap of sparking circuits and vapor. Breathless and battered, Alex turned to face the final attacker. This one seemed larger, more menacing, its body bristling with spikes and tendrils. It raised an arm, revealing a built-in cannon that hummed ominously as it charged. "No way," Alex muttered, realizing he wouldn't survive a direct hit. Desperation fueled his next move. Spotting a pile of loose rubble near the creature's feet, Alex hurled his steel beam with all his might, knocking the pile loose. The debris tumbled downward, burying the creature's legs and pinning it in place. Before it could free itself, Alex sprinted forward, leaping onto its hunched form and driving the jagged shard into its glowing eye. The creature convulsed violently before disintegrating into nothingness, leaving Alex standing alone amidst the ruins. For a moment, silence reigned. Alex collapsed to his knees, his body trembling with exhaustion. The simulation dissolved around him, replaced by the familiar golden glow of the forge. Leora stood nearby, her expression unreadable. "You survived," she said simply. "Impressive." Alex wiped sweat from his brow, still catching his breath. "That felt way too real." "It was designed to," Leora replied. "The simulation adapts to your emotional state, amplifying fear and doubt to test your resolve. Many fail because they cannot overcome their own minds." "Well, I'm glad I didn't fail," Alex muttered, rising unsteadily to his feet. "But what was the point? Was that supposed to teach me something?" "Yes," Leora said, stepping closer. "It taught you to adapt. To think quickly under pressure. And most importantly, to confront your fears rather than let them consume you." Alex nodded slowly, the weight of her words sinking in. For years, he'd lived a life defined by monotony and routine, never pushing beyond the boundaries of comfort or safety. Now, thrust into a world of chaos and uncertainty, he was discovering strengths he hadn't known existed. But physical and mental tests aren't enough. Leora continued. "There's one final trial, the hardest of all." "What's that?" Alex asked warily, bracing himself for whatever came next. "Emotional endurance," Leora explained. "To fight for others, you must first understand what drives you. Why are you willing to risk everything for a planet that has given you so little?" Her question struck a nerve, forcing Alex to confront truths he'd long avoided. Growing up poor in New Chicago, he'd often felt invisible, overlooked by a society that valued wealth and status over kindness and resilience. Yet even in his darkest moments he'd clung to hope, a stubborn belief that things could get better. "I don't know," Alex admitted quietly. "Maybe it's because Earth is all I've ever known. Or maybe it's because I finally have a chance to matter. To make a difference." Leora studied him intently, her violet eyes softening slightly. "A noble reason. But remember, intentions mean nothing without action. Are you prepared to act, no matter the cost?" Alex hesitated, the enormity of her question weighing heavily on his shoulders. Could he truly shoulder the responsibility of saving billions? Was he ready to sacrifice everything, including his own life, for a cause greater than himself? Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. "I'll do whatever it takes." Leora inclined her head, a gesture of respect. "Then we proceed. Follow me." She led him deeper into the forge, the walls shimmering with renewed intensity as if responding to his decision. Ahead, a massive doorway loomed, radiating waves of light that pulsed in sync with Alex's heartbeat. "This is the threshold," Leora announced. "Beyond lies the culmination of your training. Once you cross, there will be no turning back." Alex swallowed hard, staring at the doorway with equal parts dread and determination. Whatever awaited him on the other side, he knew it would change him forever. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward, crossing the threshold without looking back. The moment Alex crossed the threshold, reality itself seemed to unravel. The air around him shimmered and twisted, colors bleeding into one another until he could no longer distinguish up from down, left from right. His body felt weightless, suspended in an endless void where time had no meaning. Yet amidst the chaos, a voice, soft but commanding, spoke directly to his mind. "Who are you?" it asked, devoid of judgment yet probing deeply. Alex opened his mouth to respond, but no words came out. Instead, images flooded his consciousness, flashes of his life laid bare for scrutiny. He saw himself as a child, wide-eyed and hopeful, dreaming of adventures beyond the stars. He saw himself as a teenager, angry and disillusioned, railing against a world that seemed determined to ignore him. And he saw himself now, standing on the precipice of something unimaginable, grappling with doubts and fears while clinging to a fragile sense of purpose. "I'm nobody special," Alex thought finally, his mental voice trembling. "Just me?" The voice paused, as if considering his answer. Then it spoke again, its tone warmer this time. "You are more than you believe. Within you lies potential untapped, strength untested, courage unseen. Will you embrace it?" Before Alex could respond, the void transformed once more. He found himself standing in a vast arena bathed in golden light, its edges fading into infinity. Opposite him stood a figure clad in armor identical to the one projected earlier during his training, a perfect version of what he might become. But there was something unsettling about it. The figure's eyes glowed coldly, devoid of emotion or humanity. "This is your ultimate test," Leora's voice echoed faintly, though she was nowhere to be seen. "Face yourself." The armored figure stepped forward, raising a weapon that pulsed with blinding energy. Without warning, it lunged at Alex, forcing him to dive out of the way just as the blade sliced through the air where he'd been standing moments earlier. "What the hell is this?" Alex shouted, scrambling to his feet. He had no weapon, no shield, nothing to defend himself with except his wits and sheer determination. "You cannot defeat me," the figure said, its voice eerily calm and mechanical. "I am perfection. I am inevitability." Alex gritted his teeth, refusing to back down despite the overwhelming odds. "Yeah? Well, I'm stubborn. Let's see how far that gets me." Drawing on every ounce of agility and reflexes honed during his training, Alex dodged and weaved, avoiding the relentless attacks of his opponent. Each strike missed him by mere inches, leaving scorched marks on the ground where the energy blade connected. Sweat poured down his face, and his muscles burned with exertion, but he refused to give up. As the battle raged on, Alex began to notice subtle flaws in the figure's movements. It was fast and precise, but predictable, its attacks following a pattern that repeated itself after several exchanges. Realizing this gave him an edge. Timing his movements carefully, Alex feinted left, drawing the figure off balance before launching himself forward with everything he had. With a desperate roar, Alex tackled the armored figure, driving both of them to the ground. The impact sent shockwaves rippling across the arena, and for a brief moment, the glowing eyes flickered uncertainly. "You cannot win," the figure growled, struggling to regain control. "I am stronger. Faster. Better." "No," Alex panted, pinning it down with all his strength. "You're just empty." Summoning every last bit of resolve, Alex focused not on physical force but on the intent behind his actions. This wasn't just about overpowering his opponent, it was about proving that humanity wasn't defined by perfection or invincibility. It was defined by resilience, adaptability, and heart. The figure let out a final, anguished cry before dissolving into light, scattering into countless fragments that faded into nothingness. Exhausted but triumphant, Alex collapsed onto the ground, staring up at the infinite sky above him. "Well done!" Leora's voice broke through the silence, her form materializing beside him. She knelt down, placing a hand gently on his shoulder. "You have faced your greatest adversary, and emerge victorious. Alex managed a weak smile, still catching his breath. Guess I'm tougher than I look. Leora nodded approvingly. Indeed. You've proven yourself capable of growth, of change. Now you must carry that strength into the battles ahead. As she helped him to his feet, the arena dissolved once more, replaced by the familiar interior of the forge. Around them, the walls shimmered with renewed intensity, pulsating rhythmically as if celebrating Alex's success. What happens now? Alex asked, his voice steadier than before. We prepare for war, Leora replied gravely. The invaders draw closer with each passing moment. Time is our most precious resource, and ours is running out. Alex nodded, steeling himself for whatever lay ahead. For the first time in his life, he felt truly alive, not because he sought glory or recognition, but because he had found a purpose worth fighting for. Together, they boarded the ship once more, setting course for Earth. As the forge faded into the distance, Alex gazed out at the stars streaking past, his resolve unwavering. Earth may have been small and insignificant in the grand scheme of the universe, but it was home. And Alex would do whatever it took to protect it, even if it meant becoming someone he never imagined he could be.